Welcome and thanks for tuning in. I'm Lynn Berger, host of Lynn Berger Interviews Remarkable People. And today I have the privilege of speaking with Rob Sennott, currently the executive producer of the documentary 76 Days Adrift. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, Lynn, thanks for inviting me. I love talking about our movie.
Okay, and we're going to talk about you as well. So,
Sure.
so take us back before we get to the movie that we're really going to dive into because it's quite an unbelievable documentary with a fabulous story behind it. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What was your career like before you got to do this?
Sure. I've been fortunate enough to have many careers,
I
uh,
love it as a
which
career.
which
Okay.
is good. I didn't do the same thing, you know, um, you know, very much in my life. So I first started out when I was finished with college. I went to Boston College in Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts, and that was a good experience. But it bored me. I wanted real life experiences, and I was intrigued. My father was a realtor. Early on, I would be working. He put me out to work with his builders, the builders that he represented, and I was always intrigued by building. So I became interested in carpentry, and I learned how to build houses on my own and frame them and finish them. And it was just this wonderful experience, which led me back to being with my father in the real estate business. I came very, very close to falling off a roof when I was about 50 feet off the ground. And at that exact moment, I said, you know what? I'm not going to do this anymore. You know, I'm gonna leave this profession and pursue real estate. And I did with my father, and it changed my life dramatically. And so I'm a second generation realtor.
Mm-hmm.
My family had a number of Century 21 franchises in the west of Boston, and we went from Wellesley to Worcester. That was our claim to fame. And it was a great market. I learned a lot about housing, a lot about business. Century 21 was very good about training their agents and their brokers. And it was this wonderful access to very inspirational people. And I learned early how to model after successful people. I always wanted to be, that certain person, whatever I wanted to be. And I found out that it was super important to be surrounded by talented, important people
Mm-hmm.
and learn from them, you know, learn from them. And so began my career in real estate. And it did, it was a very interesting business to be in. We went through some big downturns. I placed mortgages at 18%, and now I have a 2.75% mortgage. So that's the contrast, right? And I remember out of the back of my Century 21 office in Hopkinton, Massachusetts, is where the Boston Marathon starts. I was seeing this lack of market intelligence when it came to the real estate market. When was the last time, Lynn, that you had the National Association of Realtors negatively speak about any housing market in the metropolitan markets throughout the U.S.? Never. It's never happened. Never. And so I was intrigued by that. And I formed this other company called Market Intelligence. And it provided Gucci market intelligence for big banks, for GE Capital's mortgage insurance company called Gemico. They really needed good information because
Mm-hmm.
they were lending and doing 90% loans or 80% or less LTV, loan to value ratios. So that business took me far and wide throughout the United States. And we started out with nothing. Um, we started out in a 750 square foot office, soon outgrew that with our four employees, and went to a 5,000 square feet. And we outgrew that, went to 17,000 square feet. We outgrew that pretty quickly with about 100 people. And then we ended up in a 62,000 square foot building with over 300 people
Oh, great.
and a $2 million mainframe EMC Symmetrics computer to do all of our market intelligence and analysis. And when we started, back then it would take 3,000 people to do the work that we were doing with 300 people.
Mm.
It was fabulous. We sold it to a company called Allegheny, traded on the New York Stock Exchange. Old line company, had been in business since 1929. Wonderful, beautiful deal for us. You're looking at the Forrest Gump of residential real estate
Mm.
here. So I went from broker to real estate information services um, person. And that was just great. And I so then I decided to kind of try to retire, which I didn't like very much.
How
My wife,
long did that last?
oh, a
Return.
couple of years. We moved up to Vermont
Oh,
and
nice.
from Hopkinton, Mass. And we lived in Pomfret, Vermont, which is contiguous to Woodstock and Queechee. People know Queechee because of the Queechee Gorge and the homeowners association known as Queechee Lakes. We lived in Pomfret. We bought 405 acres. It was Monet, beautiful land. I can't believe how beautiful it was. And we really got into that community. And at that time, there was a small local bank which I hooked up with and I was on the board of and bought a lot of stock in the bank to the point where I had this vision and dream of if I wrote a check, I could make that small bank bounce. Um, didn't do it, but it was one of my goals in life was to, to own more than 5% of a bank. And during that whole process, I became involved in working on a documentary that I was very interested in. It was entitled WBCN and the American Revolution. It was about a radio station in Boston that I worked at in the early 70s. And it really caught my attention. I loved working on the film. The station was so cool to work at. My gosh, I volunteered there for a couple of years. And it was just a wonderful experience seeing this movie produced. It
Mhm.
led me to my next movie, in my second movie, which is entitled Adrift for 76 Days Adrift. It's a documentary about a close friend of mine that was adrift in a 5.5 foot rubber life raft for 76 days.
And how did you start? How did you get involved in it?
Well, I had a dream about 5 years ago, now almost 6 years ago. And it was at the very beginning of COVID. And I remember that the dream, the dream said, for some reason, it brought me back to Steve's book. Steve wrote a book about his experience being adrift for 76 days. And my dream was very vivid. And I said, the dream said, read his book again. The next morning, I acted on my dream, which I never do. It's the first time in my life I've acted on a dream. Went to the local public library, and I live on the Cape in Massachusetts right now, and went to the public library, got the book, ripped through it, loved it, and I there was a reason why the dream happened. Reached back to Steve, talked to Steve because I was intrigued about it, whether it could become a movie or not, see what was going on with my friend Steve,
Well, tell
revisit
us
with
about
him.
your friend Steve, that he was even your friend.
Went to high school with him.
Right.
Went to high school with him. We were on the track team together at Dover Sherburne Regional High School in Massachusetts. And I, I was very aware of when Steve was found, the day after he was found, front page, top of the fold, Boston Globe. He's found. This is when he was found after he was adrift.
Hmm.
And he was found in the Caribbean by three Caribbean fishermen that saw
Hmm.
his raft.
Hmm.
And I just began following the story, and I was watching Johnny Carson, and on comes Steve.
Mm.
It intrigued me, and so Steve did about a 15-minute hit on Johnny Carson, and it was wonderful. And Steve did a good job telling the story. 3 or 4 years later, he writes the book, and I, avidly read the book first time, loved the story, and then I saw him again on Johnny Carson when he was doing the book tour. So I became kind of a big fan of Steve's story. And it wasn't until just then, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, that I had the vision to pick up the book. And it led me to call him and see if I could help him with doing a documentary or a movie of some kind from my BCN experience. And it turns out that he had been working with and had been interviewed by Joe Ween,
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
director of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Joe's done a phenomenal job of doing the movie. And so Joe had visited Steve up in Bar Harbor, near Bar Harbor, Maine, where he lives. He lives in Lemoyne, Maine, and did a 25-hour interview process with Steve. That's the basis of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And so Joe had started, but it kind of put it up on the shelf for a while. And I contacted Joe, reached out to him and said, "Hey, I want to work with you on this." I was a major funder of putting the movie in production. And we work very closely together. I flew out to Los Angeles where he lives. He lives in the San Fernando Valley, not too far from
Mm-hmm.
Hollywood. Fly out, we shake hands, we form a bond, and we work together on the film. And Joe had been working on it for 3 or 4 years prior to I got involved. And so the movie's taken about 8 years to make.
How did you get involved in documentaries in the first place?
Working at BCN and did the movie,
Okay. Okay.
and that was the first real opportunity to work on a film. And I worked on that film with the director, Bill Lichtenstein, for almost, well, we worked together almost 10 years. We kid each other because it was 50 years, or it was more than 50 years ago that we worked there. So we've actually been working on it for
Yeah.
50 years.
Yeah.
But it was picked up by WGBH in Boston,
Mm,
and they sponsored it, and the movie went across the whole country, 117 stations, 75% of the country had access to see the movie. We're re-releasing
yes.
WBCN The American
Yes. Yes.
Revolution,
Yes. Yes. You're
and
going.
that's a lot of fun. That's going to be good. It's going to be good because people are going to be able to re-see it again. And the movie is about this late 60s, early 70s when there was so much turmoil. You know, we started March 15th, 1968 in this really funky little studio, and we ended up becoming one of the most successful FM radio stations in the country.
Mm,
Highest paid spots, radio spots, um, in the country at one point. Um, so anyways, I got bit by the movie
okay. You
bug.
got you.
BCN did it,
Yes.
and
Okay.
a follow up was 76 Days. I'm on my third movie with Bill, Broken. It's about how badly broken the Massachusetts child in foster care welfare system and juvenile courts is, full of a lot of fraud and
Mm,
neglect, and it's a dark subject, but Bill is doing a great job on bringing this to light. And it's in post-production, and it will be out sometime this year, hopefully. And that will be on the film
mhm.
festival circuit later this year. Wonderful movie. It's coming out. Broken. And my fourth movie, my first feature-length movie, is a rom-com that's just being cast right now. We've got some great actors and actresses, really well named. It's going to be a great. It's going to be a popular movie one day,
Great.
but
Great.
not until we work really hard on it. Several thousand hours later, it'll come out.
Okay. Let's go back to
Yeah,
76 Days Adrift
yeah,
because that's
yeah.
how I met you.
Yes.
I saw the movie, the documentary in
Madison,
Madison,
Connecticut. Yeah,
Connecticut, and then you spoke afterwards.
yeah.
And I went because I was intrigued and I had heard a little bit about the book and saw that movie. It was, I have to say, one of the most incredible experiences to watch what that movie was about, resilience, the harrowing experiences that Steve had. And it was done so well. Give us a little bit of background of those hours he was interviewed, but how challenging was it to make that movie?
Well, yeah, the frame of the movie was surrounded by the 25 hours of interviews with Steve,
Hmm.
um, and set in his home. And it was extremely well done. Joe brought a real professional cameraman from Hollywood to do the interview process. And we edited it. We From the 25 hours of constant interview, we took about 90 minutes of tape from that. And that formed really the whole basis of the story that was told. Um, we shot it. We shot the points of view. We had Joe Ween as Steve in the exact replica of the Avon life raft that he was adrift in, with a chest camera.
Mm-hmm.
For 17 days in St. Croix, we shot the points of view with Joe, but actually it was portrayed as Steve in the movie. And all you saw was, like you saw in the movie, his hands and his legs in the movie. You never saw his face, but he became Steve. The director was in the raft, became Steve. And Steve narrated his story with points of view, which really made you feel like you were, with him
Mm-hmm.
during his journey. It's famous. It's world famous. It's in 20 languages. It's still one of the most read survival books on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
As National Geographic said, it's one of the top survival stories ever.
Mm-hmm.
It's just this dramatic, really, story of how resourceful and how perseverant Steve was. He
Mm-hmm.
never gave up, you know. He
Mm-hmm.
never gave up. He wanted to give up. He came close to giving up. And he was challenged by some of the most amazing problems that he had to solve, or he was going to die.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And so it's just a great movie. We made the cut for Oscar consideration this year. Didn't make the short list. We did not make the short list, which I was hoping we were going to. It's rare that you can get a adventure documentary to be on the top 15 movies for
Okay.
documentaries. And
Mm-hmm.
so we missed that mark, but um, the attributes of the movie. Ang Lee is famous
Mm-hmm.
movie director and producer, mostly famous for his Oscar-winning Life of Pi.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
Steve Callahan, the subject of our movie, was contacted by Ang um, after reading Steve's book. He reached out to Steve, visited Steve in Maine, and spent a long weekend. Steve took him sailing in Penobscot Bay. They got along really well. Ang went away. 6 months later, out of nowhere, he calls Steve and says, Steve, I'm in Taiwan. I'm doing the water scenes for Life of Pi. I'm having a hell of a time with the water. You got to come see me. You got to help me. And Steve dropped his whole everything, spent the duration of making that film in Taiwan and India doing the movie. And as Ang Lee said, Steve became my soulmate and my guru in making Life of Pi. And so Ang joined on to the film, just out of respect for Steve. And it's been nice to have his backing,
Sure.
um, and interest in the film. In fact, we've just sold the movie rights to a company in Taiwan that's going to start distributing and showing the movie in Taiwan. And we've had pretty big interest in the Far East. And we're days away from executing a distribution agreement for North America with a really good, reputable company that's going to help us broaden our ability to bring the movie to a national audience now through streaming and video on demand and things like that. I'm actually working closely with a company to get it onto Delta Airlines, which I'm a million miler flyer, and I'm just anxious to be able to see the movie while I'm flying, and
Oh God, I don't know.
and, and I've been working with some good people from Delta that are trying to help me influence us getting on their roster of films, which it'll be a good movie to have on board there. So
Oh, they'll keep you captivated the whole time. You won't
for
even
sure.
realize. Yeah,
Oh,
I was captivated by that movie in such a way. And you knew Steve as
yes.
a child, right?
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
a
In
teenager.
high school. In high
Yeah.
school as a teenager. Yeah.
So when you hear what happens and you become it's part of your life,
Yeah.
did you see any characteristics of him as being so persistent,
Yeah.
tenacious,
Yeah. Yeah. Early
resilient?
on. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good question, Lynn. I distinctly remember we ran track together, field and track, spring track, and Steve was a half miler. And
Mhm.
early on, I saw, the expression "tough as nails"
Mhm.
overused, but not in Steve's case. not in Steve's
Yeah.
case. So his problem was that we had the state champion on our team, the half
Right.
mile.
Right.
And so Steve was always about 6, 8 feet behind him, never beat him, but always took second or third in important meets. And he would run until he was blue in the face. He was just so dedicated to just doing the best he could. And kind of that was my foreshadowing of seeing how he was capable and how he was so resilient
Mm,
and hopeful. One thing, he was just so hopeful in the movie and inspirational. People love the movie because of its inspiring qualities.
hmm
Seeing Steve, you know, overcome all that he had to overcome to stay alive. It's just been a great um, process. I love the process of making a film.
mm,
And I'm reluctant to see a film both of these films have been made. I didn't want to see it until it was on the big screen. I wasn't wanted to see parts of it or, rough cuts. I
hmm
wanted to see I saw some rough cuts, but it's fun to see it in the theater, a sold out theater, and you feel like a producer. The producers, the movie
Yes.
with Zero
Yes. Yes.
Mostel
Yes.
and
Yes.
Gene
Yes.
Wilder.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
What a fabulous story, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So, um, you know,
Yeah.
it's fun to be a producer, and the rewarding thing is to see the audience reaction. That's the payback, right? Is how much people get out of the movie and how much it moves them to witness Steve's experience, and also WBCN that was really well received as well. So there's not a lot of dough in making these movies. It's more of a labor of love and creating art. One thing very interesting about 76 Days Adrift is Joe's very good friends with the lead singer for the band called Fallout Boy. Fallout Boy commonly tours with Green Day, and Patrick Stump did the sound score
hmm
and did a fabulous job. He actually engaged and retained the Royal Scottish National Orchestra to do the
hmm
sound score live, cued to a huge jumbotron in in Scotland, in Edinburgh,
hmm
and uh, wonderful job. And he actually ends the movie. The outro credit song is he covers Iggy Pop's iconic song called "The Passenger," and
mm
it's the most perfect song to end the movie with. And just the way it ends and the scenes that are created as background to this song as the credits start to play, and we have
hmm
other associated images
hmm
of and from the film being flashed as the credits are rolling. And Patrick is doing this phenomenal job of Iggy Pop's "The Passenger." So that's one of my favorite parts about the movie is the ending and the music because people like it, and the score really supports the
hmm
movie.
Absolutely. And you're just like there. It,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
it's one of those movies that you don't get up and get popcorn. You sit
No,
there and you
no.
watch it and you're riveted by what's going to happen next and the
Lynn, that's a good point because I've seen the movie so many times. We just finished a 100 city tour throughout the United States,
Mm,
from Juneau, Alaska, to the Keys in Florida, to Rockport, Maine, to San Diego. Everything in between. And I've seen it, 50, 60 times in a
mm,
theater, and I've never seen anyone walk out. Not one person has ever walked out on the movie. And Um, only older men and women that need to visit the bathroom once are
yeah, you
subject
don't
to
get
leaving the
up.
movie.
You,
The people don't get up, they stay and they finish the movie, and you know, it's just this wonderful thing. I'm a little biased. You know, it's going to be fairly well publicized,
mm,
and we're going to get Ang Lee involved. We're going to get Patrick involved in a couple events. So your listeners and viewers can take and just go to our website, 76daysadrift.com, and follow. By doing that, you'll see we're going to announce, and you'll be able to follow it, our progression and through distribution.
Okay. So, do you have any final words about having the privilege to be a executive producer of documentaries and
Sure,
any advice you would give to people? Because a lot of people, that would be a dream for them.
sure, sure. Well, I've been lucky enough to, very lucky, to hook up with some very talented people. Both directors in both movies I've been involved in were extremely talented, had a lot of previous experiences. That didn't hurt. And it's a lot of work, and you have to be patient with the process. It takes a lot more time than people would think.
Hmm.
But the process is so rewarding when the product is finally made. It's your baby, and you become very proud of that baby, um, and want to show it off. Um, so it's just this wonderful experience, and it's an art form that gives people, a relief from their day or their life, and it just it's a wonderful experience. Perseverance in making movies is important too. It takes just a lot of extra effort. In my case, thousands of emails, hundreds of phone calls, an ungodly amount of time spent on every little detail to help make the movie become more successful. Um, and so that's my only advice is if you can do it if you want, but be prepared to work really, really hard. It's not an easy task to bring a movie to life, but it's so worth it. Um, so
Well, it's a labor of love.
it is totally.
So, thank you so much for being here today, sharing your knowledge and your backgrounds.
Lynn, thanks for having me. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Thank you. You take care now. Thank you
Good.
very much. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
Right through the city's backside, I see the stars come out of the sky. Yeah, the bright and hollow sky. You know they look so good tonight. I am a passenger. I stay under glass. I look through my window so bright. I see the stars come out tonight.